Hi, I'm Tom Alessi. I'm the Radio Systems Manager for Westchester County Department of Emergency Services. And today we're going to be going over the basic operation of the Motorola APX 8000 radios, which are being deployed to fire and EMS agencies. The radio is basically the same as your XTS radios that you currently have, but we'll go over all the buttons. We're also going to be giving out handouts which show the buttons and their uses. So let's go over them one at a time. The radio has button 1, which is the volume and on and off switch. And if we turn the button clockwise, you'll see the screen comes on. And at the present moment, we're on the A bank 60 control. Button 2 is right here. It's a little slide switch which goes back and forth, and we don't use that. That would be used for anything from encryption to channel selection, but we don't use it. Button 3 is right here. Same as on your XTS radios. It is A, B, and C, and that's a quick way of getting to banks, the first 3 banks. Button number 4 is the channel select button. The channel select button is on the top, just like your other radio, and has 16 channels. Some of the banks actually have more than 16 channels in them, and we'll show you how to get to those also. But for now, channels 1 and all the way to the other side, channel 16. Button number 5. Button number 5 is the emergency button, which is the orange button on the top. You depress it for 2 seconds. It'll send an emergency notification to the dispatch consoles. This button is very important. Try not to hit it. It causes a disruption in the room where everybody stops and tries to figure out what the problem is. To reset an emergency, they may ask you to hold the button down for 3 seconds. Another way of disabling an emergency is just to turn the radio off for 3 or 4 seconds and then turn it back on again. I like that better than actually trying to push down on the button. Button number 6. Button number 6 is the purple button on the side of the radio, just above the push to talk switch. And number 6 on this radio, in the conventional mode, would be a monitor button, which you'll hear static, and if somebody doesn't have private line, you'll be able to hear that person. It'll also allow you to set the volume. In trunking, though, this button actually is a playback, an audio playback recorder, which is another video we'll go over. This radio is able to record and play back the last message that you heard, just in case you didn't hear it properly. Button number 7. There's 2 buttons on the bottom. One has 1 dot on it. The other has 2 dots on it. The one on the top is the light button. This will turn the backlight on the display on and off. It's click on, click off. The bottom button on here is the keyboard lock. The keyboard lock, you depress it and you can't change any of the settings until the lock is turned back off. Button number 9 is on the front of the radio, and it looks like a little computer. That's not used in this radio at all. And the next button is the home button, which is right here. The home button, it's not described in this pamphlet, but the home button is basically an escape or a return. If you're in something, you want to get back out, hit the home button, it'll bring you right back. All right, now with the radio on, I'm going to go over the front display. The front display has what are called soft buttons, which are across here. They change depending on where you are in the menu. If you take a look here, the first one says zone. Second one says channel, and the third one says Nuisance, which is the nuisance delete. Nuisance delete is actually used to mute a frequency that's talking that you don't want to hear for a moment in scan. The nuisance delete will be discarded once the radio is turned off and turned back on again. So let's go over zone. If you click zone, you'll notice that there's, at the present moment, there's Fire AT, EMS AT. That's the existing system. That's analog trunking. Fire analog trunking, EMS analog trunking. Then you get into digital, which is not in service at the moment. Digital fire and EMS. Fire and EMS, after we go to the digital system, will be one in the same zone. So if you're an EMS 12 person, you'll be on Fire/EMS 12. The fire agencies that are on Fire 12 will also be able to hear you. We go to Ops DT, which is the operations channels. Fire grounds, which are the same fire grounds we use currently. Hospitals, if you're an ambulance or a chief. And then we get into our IO frequencies. There's UHF IO, which is the you call, you text. You have IO VHF, which is the VCall and VTAX. And IO 700, which are the 700 megahertz 7 call, 7 tax. You also have the 8 call and 8 tac. The next one is marine. You have the marine channels as well as the weather channels in the vicinity. There are also a bank called fire agency and EMS agencies. These are different conventional type of radio systems which you can get into. And the last but not least is called the local zone. The local zone is where if you wanted your radio vendor to program up a zone which has just the things that you use, you can have them put them in this local zone. This doesn't affect the operation of any of the other talk groups or zones, but just what you want. Say you have a separate ops channel, dispatch channel, or you listen to a crossband repeater, that would be in this zone. Now, if you take a look, say I wanted to go to the fire grounds, I would go down the fire ground and hit select, and now my channel selector on the top will switch the channels on fire grounds. All right. If you didn't want to do anything and you were still in the zones, you just hit the exit button. Brings you back to the main menu. And remember, I was talking about how some of the zones have more than 16 talk groups in them. I'll go back to say the existing fire channels, hit select, and if I needed to go somewhere past Ops 5, say I needed to go to Ops 6, I would hit channels. You see all the channels displayed. You go down to the one you want, Ops 6, 7, 8, whatever. Go to Ops 6, hit select, and your radio is on Ops 6. Now, if you were to change the switch on the top, you'll get out of Ops 6. You'll go to whatever channel you select on the top. Okay, as I was saying, the soft buttons have multiple purposes. If you use the right and left arrows, say go to the right arrow, the soft keys change. You'll have scan, scan list, and mute. Hit it again, you go to clock, battery, and recent. So if we wanted to use scan, first we have to make a scan list. We hit the scan list. You'll be shown the talk groups. You select, there's a select button here, you select the one that you want, say ops 2 for some reason, and then you want it to have fire 17, you go up to fire 17 and hit select. Go up to, say, fire 12, hit select. And now if you want to see which ones you have in your scan list, you can recall them. There's a recall button here. If you hit the recall button, what happens is it'll cycle through the ones that are in your scan list. We get out of that by hitting the home button again. And then if we hit the scan button, you'll notice that it says scan on. And there's a little Z on the top that shows you that you're in scan mode. Okay, which brings us back to the first screen, which is the nuisance delete. Say you're scanning multiple talk groups and one of them is something you don't want to hear. You would, while they're talking, you would hit the nuisance, and it would pass that and not let you listen to that one talk group. In the third screen, we have clock, battery, and recent. Clock is for setting the clock. You hit edit, go through the settings, hit exit. If you wanted to look at your battery's output, you would hit battery, and it'll give you some info about your battery. It'll tell you how many times it's been charged, what the percentage of charge that you have left on this battery, and the capacity of the battery, meaning the last time it was charged to 100%, or possibly as it's getting older it may go down to 95%. It'll show you on here, but it does tell you how many times it's been charged, in addition to your front screen, which tells you where you are. You also have a screen on the top which tells you the same information. If you're on op 6 on the front, you'll see op 6, so that when you're looking down at your radio, you can tell where you are. The radio comes with a leather case and either one of two different microphones. The officers and some EMS people will get this enhanced version, and that allows you to change channels from the top. You have an emergency button, and then there's a toggle switch on the opposite side. This toggle switch will bring your volume up and down depending on which way you go up or you go down. Volume will change. Push to talk switch also. If you push to talk on here, the microphones on the radio are turned off, and only this microphone will work. The basic microphone, it's basically the same thing without the channel knob. Channel knob is missing, but you do have an emergency button, same as on the radio, and you have a toggle switch which will bring the volume up and the volume down. Okay, so if you get your radio and it's not put together, you might want to put it in the leather case. What I suggest you do is you take this cover off, which is just a little thumb screw, and you turn it until this comes off. And this is a little dust cover which protects the gold contacts. If you're going to put your microphone on the radio, what you do is you slide the top part in, push the connection, and use the thumb wheel, and you're great. You put the radio in the leather case, and you take the bungee cords, go over the radio, and snap it in. Right like that. There you go. All right. So your radio is all set. Then you take the microphone itself, and you go up to the little loops, the leather loops, and put your microphone in the leather loops. Now you've got your radio all put together. First of all, the mobile radio has approximately the same head, a little bit different display. To turn the radio on, if necessary, use the green button on the corner. Turn the radio on. It'll display APX 8500. And if it's on a trunking talk group, it will log in. You'll know that it's logged in by the antenna and 5 bars. Let's go through the actual knobs. This knob over here is the volume control. The one on the right is the talk group select. You'll notice that the talk groups are changing. The orange button is the emergency button. Depress that for 2 seconds. It'll send an emergency to the consoles and to all the radios on the same talk group. Going down here is an asterisk button, which is not programmed on this radio. The P button, which is the programmed audio playback button. Push that, and the last transmission that you received will be replayed. On this side, we have a home button. This is used as an escape or return button. Then you have 5 buttons across the bottom, which go to the soft keys. In this case, the soft keys are zone, scan, scan list, RSSI, which is RSSI is strength and which tower you're on, north or south. You have a zone up. If we use the arrows and go to the right, we have a zone down, a channel up, and a channel down. Channels being talk groups in this case. If we go over to say zone up, it will change the zones one at a time. So you'll go through each one of the zones and whatever channel you were on last. But if you hit the zone button itself, you get a list of the zones so that you could see what's available. Highlight it in blue. Say we wanted to go to, let's say, the weather. We hit select, and then we could use the channel button. There's several weather channels that you can select from. When you want, you actually just leave it there and you'll be able to listen. This is a receive only, these are receive only channels. So if we wanted to change talk groups, we would use the channel selector. This will allow you to go through the list in the zone or bank. If we need to change zones or change banks, we would hit the zone button. Select the bank that you want to be on. It'll highlight it in blue. In this case, we're going to go from the existing system trunk A, which is fire, over to trunk B, which is EMS. Make it blue and hit select. And you'll notice that we're on Westchester Medical Center. And we'll go through the hospitals. You'll also go through the tax channels, operations channels, which are shared with fire, and we're in EMS. In the existing system, EMS and fire are on different zones. In the new system, fire and EMS will be on the same zone. We'll go through that at a different time. Our second button is scan. This will turn the scan on and turn scan off. But before you can scan, you need it to have a scan list, which is what you want to scan. To make a scan list, you hit scan L. You go through and select whichever talk groups you want to scan. Say EMS 15. I would select it. Puts a little Z on it, means that it's in the scan list. I'll go to EMS 17, hit select. Now if I want to see what's in the scan list, I do a recall, and it will bring me up everything that's in that scan list. If I wanted to take one out of there, say I wanted to take the police, the Westchester County Police out of the scan list, I would highlight it, hit delete. Now the little Z, the little scan indicator is gone, and it's not in the recall. When that's done, what we do is we hit the home button, and we get back. To go into scan, we would hit the scan button, and you'll notice it said scan enabled, and the Z is on. This Z icon tells you that you're in scan. Also, you'll notice that the radio talk group that you're actually going to transmit on is the one that's displayed. So you can program several talk groups into the radio, and whichever one you are actually sitting on or listening to and displaying, that's the one that you're going to transmit on. This is the enhanced microphone, which has many buttons on it, and you can program up a quick memory so that you can go to different talk groups quickly.